We can now go back to our earlier story on JoyNews investigations that have revealed how millions of tons of soya beans and other grain products are exported to Togo, Nigeria, and Benin illegally. Joining us live is Edward Kariwa. He's General Secretary of the Agricultural Workers Union. Mr. Kariwa, I'm grateful for your time and would also be joined by Sir Charles. Well, Edward Kariwa, you've been following this report. First, let me gauge your mood on how you feel about this, because soya bean, there's a ban on soya bean. Now we are hearing that it's being transported illegally to elsewhere through Chirponi. How does this make you feel?
Well, I just think that this is the usual thing, because smuggling in this country is very rife. So many things are getting out of this country illegally. So if I hear that it's being smuggled out, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. The only thing is, it reminds me that we are still unable to deal with matters of smuggling in this country.
As the General Secretary of GAU, how do you think that this can be resolved? Should the ban be lifted?
You know, the ban should not be lifted. But what would be the use of the ban when you cannot enforce it? You know, so if the ban goes with cost, there are certain policies that incur cost. If you incur the cost in anticipation of getting a return back. So if there's a cost to the ban, and yet the effect of constraining exports is not achieved, then we better lift the ban. But if we cannot, if we can enforce the ban to make sure that all other illegal routes that the people will pass these exports through are blocked, then of course we can maintain it. So it requires an assessment, you know. And I was also thinking that it's not just enough to say I've made a ban, but you have put in place measures to make sure that the ban is enforced and that they are not going to pass through the main borders to export, because it becomes obvious. But people will find a different way of exporting. So these measures should have been put in place. But it's telling us that even if they did, of course, the smugglers have been able to outweigh them. So they need to review the whole policy, and then the enforcement measures are put in place.
Mr. Kariwa, let's look at the importance of this ban and the dire consequences of what we are witnessing currently.
Well, the ban has the objective of retaining the specific items that are under the ban in this country. That is to say that we don't have enough, and as a start, or even if we have enough, and in the future we may run out of stock. Therefore, we want to have the ban today to ensure that in the future we don't get a shortage. So it's important to have the ban. That the point again is that when you have a ban and the ban is not properly enforced, then it becomes a problem. But the ban itself is good, because the objective is to retain the food here. But again, it tells us that, you see, we are not doing our work well. Because of the war in Russia and Ukraine, some countries, particularly those who are closer to Russia and Ukraine, have no food to eat. This should have been the time that we would take advantage and export and support those countries. Well, we too, as a nation, one day may fall into a similar situation like those countries, not necessarily on a war situation, but a situation that will make it difficult for us to produce. We need food from outside. And if those people also ban their foods from coming into this country, then what will happen? But we can't do much because we don't even have enough for ourselves. Therefore, we have to protect ourselves first. So I think the ban is good.
And that means that if we continue this way, it may affect food security here. I mean, we're already battling with whether we would have a food crisis or not. And that's why this must stop, right?
Well, we already have a food crisis, but all these measures are meant to seek to mitigate the crisis that we have. As to whether it's effective and how much of it it's going to mitigate, it's yet to be known, unless we are told about that. But the point is that whilst we are making the ban, we must also ensure that more food is brought into the country, because the food that is already within, we are exhausting it day in, day out, and it will not be long. It will be far less, and then our own condition will become more precarious. So we need to find a way of bringing in more food into the country and to supplement what is here. And again, let me make the point that if you look at our inflation, because it's all driven by food and transport, you see, so if we are not able to deal with the food situation now, our inflation situation will worsen into the future. We have been told that we have bought food in the country, and if there is food in the country, it may probably be that it's in the rural areas. We should again be thinking about mobilizing to go into the rural areas to convey all that food that we think is available there to the urban centers for consumption. That is if there is food in the rural areas. And that will help bring down the high cost of food in the urban centers, and then it will reduce our inflation.
I'm grateful for your time. Edward Kariwa is General Secretary of GAU. More shortly after this break.